What up, cuckolds? It's your boy the hater up in this bitch. And I wanted to do a video about the general state of affairs in WWE. Let's be honest. This is the worst wrestling has ever been. Now, that happens, right? Everything must have a low point. Everything must hit rock bottom. And obviously, today's rock bottom might be better than tomorrow's rock bottom, right? So it's understandable that something could hit the lowest point of its existence and still be successful, number one, and two, still kind of redeem itself. No problem, right? I'm not saying that this is the lowest wrestling has been and therefore wrestling is doomed forever. No one's saying that, right? But what I am saying is this. WWE and AEW in many ways, well, AEW, you can't really say they're at their lowest point because they've always sucked. But WWE is at its lowest point for sure, right? And the problem is, and the thing that gives me apprehension is that they not only do they not acknowledge the fact that this is like a shit low point, which I understand. You know, you're not going to have Triple H go out there and be like, we're at the lowest point of our career. You're not going to hear that shit, right? But they're pretending, they're straight up lying to our faces, right? They're basically saying this is a boom period in wrestling. Like, you have people like Chris Van Vliet, who I think he gets it, but he's like this middle of the road interviewer. I like him, but he's just a sycophant. Like, he just panders to every guest. He's like, what you did this time was awesome. It's like he has like a 2-hour conversation with Goldust, just basically sucking Goldust balls. Like, oh, Goldust, everything you did was awesome. Like, Goldust, which I love. Goldust was one of my personal favorites before the Attitude Era, right? But the truth is, Goldust is a jobber. I mean, let's call it like it is. Goldust had like a nice push, like a mid-card push in like 1994, and then subsequently, after that, he had like a few, like he was basically like William Regal was for the majority of his career, where he was like a jobber, right? But like once in a while, he might win like a title, right? He wasn't anything special. So, but if you listen to Chris Van Vliet, you'd think Goldust is like the next Undertaker, right? And I do agree, Goldust should be the main event, in the, in the Hall of Fame, but you see my point, right? The problem is, the Chris Van Vliets of the world have this attitude that like wrestling is in a boom period, despite the fact that there's nothing indicating this. One of my good friends sent me a meme. He's one of these boom period guys. He sent me a meme, or like a image, I guess, and it was like, this was the highest viewed WrestleMania. Yes, of course it was. Why wouldn't it be? Viewership increases every year for several reasons that have nothing to do with how good the product is. Number one, the population of the earth is increasing, right? It's like 2 billion people higher than it was in like the year 2000, at least, right? Like now we're at least 8 billion. Back then it was 6 billion. So there's that. Number one. Two, accessibility worldwide, right? Back in the day, a lot of countries couldn't get access to, WrestleMania, right? It was impossible to watch these things in Europe. It was very difficult, right? And forget about Europe. It was nearly impossible to watch it in China. It was probably very hard to watch it in India, etc., right? And even if you could watch it in India, it was very difficult to count those viewers for the WWE, right? Three, WrestleMania is 2 nights. This is my personal favorite, right? Because Mania is 2 nights, what they do is they take the viewers of night 1 and they add the viewers of night 2. But this is an incorrect way of counting, right? Because there's a significant overlap. For example, I watch both nights, but I count as 2 viewers. But I'm one fucking viewer, right? I've watched every WrestleMania since WrestleMania 16. Motherfucks. So with that being said, or 17 I think was my first one. So with that being said, right, for every WrestleMania until the 2 nights, I've counted as 1 viewer, now I count as 2 viewers. So these numbers are inflated. The reality is, nobody gives a fuck about wrestling anymore. Nobody gives a shit about Cody Rhodes. People care about The Rock, of course, but insofar as the overall event goes, nobody gives a flying fuck, right? This is the truth. Now, why? Well, the primary reason is that there are no stars, as evidenced by the draft that I mentioned a few videos ago, right? When you have Jey Uso being drafted first, when back in the day, Jey Uso would be in the supplemental draft if he were lucky. It'd be like Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and maybe like Tamina or some other bullshit. All of them would be drafted as like one person, right? As one entity, and they'd be like in the supplemental draft. It's like nobody wants these jobbers, right? Now, Jey Uso, he has improved in terms of his booking, right? And I will give props where props are due. He has done the best with what he's been given. However, he's not a main eventer. I don't care what anyone says. Now, the worst part of this wrestling is in a boom period lie, right, is that people are told to believe that all of a sudden now the Raw ratings are like 3 million. Yeah, the Raw ratings after a WrestleMania that prominently features The Rock, yes, those Raw ratings are going to be at 3 million. I bet you that this week's Raw ratings, despite the draft, are going to be like around 2, right? And after the draft, give it like 3 months. Let's see what the Raw ratings are in, I don't know, July, right? Let's see what the Raw ratings are in July. It's going to be bullshit, right? And then forget about it. When football starts, when real sports start back, nobody's going to be watching Raw on Mondays. Are you kidding me? Everyone's going to be watching Monday Night Football. It's going to be like bullshit during the entire holiday season, starting from Monday Night Football week 1 till basically Christmas, till the Super Bowl, really, right? So the truth is, the viewership continues to decrease. I believe that SmackDown is going to, in the next 3 years or so, they're going to dip under 1 million. I do believe this for a fact. I don't even know what their viewership is now, but I just don't see that many people tuning into SmackDown in the future with this kind of roster, right? Things can change, and I hope they do, but I don't see it happening. I think it's going to go down to bullshit, especially if Roman Reigns doesn't come back. If he comes back and there's some good writing, then it is what it is. Now, another reason why wrestling is in the worst situation it's ever been is because of the ousting of Vince McMahon. Now, personally, as I've said in the appropriate video, I tend to believe the allegations, right? I am not surprised at all at any of the allegations, but I don't really care because they have to be proven in a court of law, number 1. 2, even if he did it, there's still the possibility that this woman, acquiesced to it or consented to it, right? That's, I think, a very big possibility based on the evidence that we have. But the thing that pisses me off the most is the fact that at this juncture, they're only accusations, right? They're no different than if I, make a video saying Triple H took a shit in my face. You know what I mean? Like, I could just say that, but no one's going to take it seriously. But for some reason, against Vince McMahon, it's taken seriously, right? Now, with all that being said, it's very easy to ruin someone's life, as we've seen, right? This woman's got receipts, so there is some evidence that Vince McMahon did do this and did do that, but there's also evidence of Vince McMahon treating her like a girlfriend, basically, like buying her, like, giving her gift cards, sending her flowers. Like, these are things that, like, people do to their girlfriend, right? Then if they want to have, like, freaky sex and threesomes, that's on them. I think that shit's disgusting, personally, but, that's on them, right? Who are we to judge, I guess? I mean, I judge him, but, like, I don't think it should have any bearing on his company. Now, the bigger issue here is not that Vince McMahon is gone, right? Because that's whatever, like, for better or for worse, let's say we had Vince McMahon for another 10 years, right? I mean, he would retire eventually anyways, right? He's still, like, relatively young, considering he's Vince McMahon. He's in his, like, late 70s, I think. So, like, this guy's going to live for another 20 years. Like, he's not going anywhere, motherfuckers. So, he's relatively young in terms of, like, his life expectancy, I think. But realistically, it's like he's not going to keep doing this forever, right? Maybe he would. Doesn't matter. The point is, eventually we would have to live without Vince. Now, with all that being said, the question then becomes, what would happen next? Well, since WWE sold to TKO, right, things, in my opinion, have hit the fan, right? Shit's gone bad, right? Dana White, it's like this. Dana White will never be Vince McMahon, but Triple H will never be Dana White. It's really that simple. There is a hierarchy. At the top of the mountain of sports booking is Vince McMahon. After that, it's Dana White. And after that, it's who the fuck knows who it is. Probably the person that booked TNA back in the day. It doesn't, Vince Russo maybe. You know what I mean? But at the top of the mountain, it's fucking Vince McMahon. So Dana White, who's the other side of the coin, the UFC side of the coin, he's continuing to do things exactly like UFC does, right? Promoting big fights every couple of months, right? WWE is changing their format, right? Triple H is firing good wrestlers, he's hiring more jobbers, and this will reflect, and the new era will go down as complete horseshit. And we're going to see, motherfucks. We're going to see a point where Triple H comes out and he's going to be like, we're going to start listening to the fans. Like, he's going to start saying that kind of shit because he knows, well, he doesn't know yet, but he's going to see that this formula is not going to work. Because fundamentally, and I do suspect that he knows, because I don't think anybody, including Triple H, thinks that Jey Uso is going to draw any dimes. But whatever. Oh, Jey Uso's the number 3 in merch sales. So what? So what? He won't be next year. I guarantee you, motherfucks. I guarantee you that LA Knight is going to have more merch sales than Jey Uso next year. But, we'll see, cucks. But the point is, By taking out Vince McMahon, you've taken out the spirit of WWE. You've taken out the I hate to say it this way, but the humanity, the soul of the company. You see what I'm saying? Without it, it is just a corporation, right? So all those things that people get mad at, oh, I can't believe they fired Mike Kanellis during the pandemic. Oh, they fired like Rockstar Spud. They fired this guy when WWE made record profits. That's going to happen a lot more, motherfuckers. WWE might continue to make record profits because they understand that this is a sinking ship. But they also realize that this sinking ship can be leveraged in such a way where it can become a treasure trove, right? They have a big library. That's their new thing now, right? The new deal is we're going to give you our entire library of awesome shit that people still want to see, right? That costs a lot of money, and we're going to sell it to Peacock for $10 billion, right? And in there, we'll also throw in, to Netflix. We'll also throw in Monday Night Raw rights, which nobody gives a shit about because people are going to stop watching that shit, right? Like, I don't see people getting on Netflix and watching Raw live. I'm not even sure how that's going to work. The only thing that might help it is if there's no commercials, right? But think about that. Like, they're going to make money just from their Netflix deal because Netflix has so much money that to Netflix, $10 billion is like absolutely nothing. They throw that shit away. So to them, it's like, oh, we could pay $100 million for some random ass Korean miniseries with 8 episodes, or we can pay 100 times that for like the 10-year rights to WWE Raw. You see what I'm saying, motherfuckers? Like, they got it for so cheap. Like, there's like a Japanese show that was a piece of shit show that Netflix got from Japan. They paid like $100 million for the rights, right? It's like a throwaway 8-episode Japanese show. You know, that's how it's gonna work. But the truth is that all of this are just these things are attempts to pretty much do 2 things. Number one, for the mainstream traditional media to ram us up the ass with more ads, right? Because either Netflix is going to have commercials for Raw because that's just how the format of the show is, or Netflix is going to have like a lot of sponsorship. You're going to see a lot of Mountain Dew matches, motherfuckers. You're going to see a lot of Agua Fresca commercials, bitches. You know, it's going to be more commercials, 3-hour show, 2 hours of commercials, 1 match between 2 jobbers. You see what I'm saying? That's what's going to happen because they have to make the money somewhere, right? They're getting the $10 billion. That's not going to be enough. But anyways, it is what it is, right? We'll see how this goes. Things could change. But be prepared for more ads and more bullshit. Also, Netflix got a 10-year contract with WWE, but they do have an option to pull out of the contract in 5 years. I suspect they will, motherfuckers. I suspect they will pull out of it. But we'll see, you know? That being said, go fuck yourselves.